In this video, we're going to be looking at observational studies, which is yet another way of collecting data. So previously we looked at sample surveys, and this method is just a little bit different. If we read the information here about an observational study, it says you're basically drawing a conclusion by observing characteristics. So that's going to be important. Let me go ahead and underline that. Okay, so observing characteristics, right? Observational study, or taking measurements and then comparing the subjects against a control group. And it's important to note that the researcher has no control over whether the subjects receive the treatment being investigated. So here, the researcher or the statistician has no control over the subjects themselves. You're simply just observing their behaviors or their actions and let's talk about some examples here of what that might be. So you could do a traffic study at an intersection. So here, the researcher wouldn't be stopping the cars, or they wouldn't be trying to influence the cars at all. You would just be looking at the amount or type of traffic, whatever you want to study, at that particular intersection. And all you're doing is just observing it. So I don't know if you've been driving around and you've gone over a couple thin little. They look like little rubber hoses over the ground near an intersection or a road, and there's usually a couple of them. That's actually to count the number of cars. So you perhaps unwillingly have been part of an observational study on traffic, perhaps at a certain time. So another thing you could do here for an observational study is you could do like any medical study. Now, there are different ways of doing medical studies. This is by no means the only one. However, if you are just observing people and trying to draw conclusions about those people just by your observations and not influencing them at all, you could do an observational study. This works well for things that can hurt people, like smoking or drug use. So here you wouldn't want to say somebody gets the treatment, like somebody has to smoke and the other person and the other people don't. You wouldn't want to do that. But you could actually just make an observation about people that do smoke and then cancer rates. So you wouldn't be influencing them at all, but you would just be observing their behavior and observing different things about their life. In some cases here, we could also do scientific research just like that. Now, scientific research like medical studies could be done in a variety of ways. But once again, here, scientific research would be good if something that you were to try to look at were harmful, you thought, to a particular population. So you wouldn't want to make people take something or use something or do something that would be harmful to them. Instead, you would let them make any choice like that on their own, and then you would just simply observe what happens. So we've been kind of talking about a few of these different issues here. Let's just go ahead and write down a few things here. When might a researcher choose an observational study? Well, we've been kind of bouncing around this a little bit. So that would be usually ethical concerns where you don't want to raise someone's potential for getting cancer or give them something as an experiment that would harm them. So ethical concerns are definitely something to consider here. Also, you might choose an observational study because it's convenient. So you could say for the convenience factor, you want to count traffic, all you got to do is sit out there and count the cars, or you can put that device down on the road and it'll count it for you. So that's pretty convenient. What are some flaws or biases that could be involved here? Well, it's very hard to determine cause and effect. So, for instance, with the previous things we've been mentioning, perhaps tobacco use or drug use, it could be that a particular type of cancer or health problem is a result of that use, or it might be something else that those other folks are doing concurrently, right? Maybe someone that's a smoker doesn't run very much, or it's hard for them to do that. So people who are smokers maybe don't run as much as people who aren't. I don't know, and that might actually be the cause or an effect in terms of health. So you can't really make that conclusion that just because what you observe seeing, there's some kind of causal relationship or there's a cause and effect relationship. Another downside here, potential flaw, is that you can't control anything. Can't control anything. So let's say you were looking at tobacco use and you decide to look at a bunch of people and they just wind up not smoking at all. Well, you can't really conclude anything because you don't have anything to compare. So in that case, you would go, well, shoot, darn it. And then another thing here is with each one of these, it may not yield kind of what we've been talking about here, may not yield usable information. In terms of that traffic counting, maybe you're wondering about construction traffic. Maybe the people in the area that you're looking at don't want to see those dump trucks driving around and there's rocks always falling out of them. Well, maybe those traffic counters can't determine that. Maybe they just count cars or just count vehicles, I should say, coming by. So you may not get any usable information about the population you're studying using an observational study.